number 5 is the film Harakiri. This is the Criterion Collection, excuse me, there you go. This is the Criterion Collection Blu-ray. And I saw this also while I was living in New York. And I saw this in the theater, and it was an amazing experience because the film is just so, it is so, how should I put it? It engenders so many emotions that it really is it's a remarkable film viewing experience in the way that it sets off so many feelings of anger, of passion, of real remorse, and just a sense of pathos and tragedy and heroism and all that. It just engenders all these feelings in you as you watch it. So watching it on the big screen is just a nerve-wracking, potentially life-changing experience. But what made this particular showing very special was that the man, none other than Mr. Tatsuya Nakadai himself, was there. He was there after the show, and he took questions from the audience, and it was an amazing thing. He was such a huge, larger-than-life man. He was a kind of a big man in my eyes, and he was also very elderly, but he didn't look frail at all. He looked so strong, and he had that goatee beard, mustache and beard thing there, which was just the coolest thing. And he had that laugh. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen interviews with Tatsuya Nakadai. That laugh is just such a charming laugh, and he was so friendly, and you could tell that he was so happy because the theater, it was a smallish theater in New York, but it was packed. It was packed, and I remember that. And I think you could tell in his eyes that he was so happy to see this theater packed with, there were some Japanese people there, and so some of the questions were asked of him or to him in Japanese, which is really nice. But I would say most of the audience there were not Japanese. And so I think you could tell in his eyes that he was so happy to be there, because you could tell everyone wanted to see the film. And when we were seeing the film, people were gasping, and people were kind of responding vocally to the film as it was progressing. So to have Mr. Nakadai in person there, and he was just so close. I remember I was sitting not so far away from the stage, so I was just not that far away from the man. And my goodness, I don't know if I asked a question. Maybe I did, I don't remember. You know, it's again one of the failings of my own memory is that things begin to fade, but I still remember that. What a beautiful, and he had a nice suit on. He was so well dressed, and he was just he showed so much respect for everyone in that audience, and I think in turn everyone there was just so in awe of him, and we all loved him at that moment, and we still do. Mr. Nakadai, one of the great film-going, theater-going experiences of my life. Thank you so much. And Harakiri, if you haven't seen this film yet, you must see it. Okay. Yeah, we're number 4. Okay, number 4 is this one. There we go. Pink Flamingos. Okay, so Pink Flamingos is a film that was released for, I think it was its 25th anniversary, as it says there. And this was released in the theaters. And I remember when it was out in the theaters, I knew of its infamy, but I'd never seen it before. And this was back in the late 90s. And so I had no way of accessing the film. But I knew of it, and I knew I wanted to go see it. So I remember I was still in high school, but I decided one afternoon to just get on a train. It was the Amtrak train, I think. No, it wasn't the Amtrak. What was it? It was the Metro North, right? Did they still have the Metro North there? And I got on. It was a Stanford station, and I rode the train in to New York City, and I made sure I found the theater that was showing Pink Flamingos. And so I watched Pink Flamingos on the big screen. And whatever it is, 90 minutes later, I walked out of the theater and I was just, I had so many just feelings going through my body at that moment. I just, I don't know. I don't know if I was happy or sad. It was really quite something else. And I was still a teenager watching this, and there were some things that really bothered me, and they still do to this day. And I can't deal with it. The whole chicken scene. I don't like that scene at all. But other than that, there were other things that were really quite stunning. And the more I think about that movie-going experience now, the more I realize how important it was for me, because it helped me to realize the true value of looking at films that are completely out of your comfort zone. And at the time, boy, Pink Flamingos was, I must have been I must have been 16 or 17. Man, this was completely out of my comfort zone when I saw it. And Divine, my goodness, this was a revelation to me. And again, even though I have certain reservations about the film, as I said, the chicken scene, but I still find it to be a one that it was caused a kind of a revolution in my mind and my heart and my spirit as a film fan and as a fan of cinema. And it was it was a revolution that I think was very positive and overall very life-affirming. Yeah, I don't want to say too much about the film because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who has not seen it. Yeah, just really, I think this is one of those great lessons in my film-going life, which is never judge a book by its cover. Always try to watch films outside of your comfort zone, and try always to not think over the film or try to think above and beyond the film, but try to be with the film and try to engage with it. Don't think I think I try not to think that I am above a film, that I am morally superior to a film. I think that if I have that mindset going into a film, I think that the battle is lost and there's no turning back, unfortunately. But this film taught me, I think, something very valuable in that, is that I must try to engage with the film on its own terms, and with as little preconception or preconceived notions as I can, just to take it as fresh as I can and to experience it with a fresh perspective. This film, I think, taught me a lot about that kind of film-going experience and the importance of that. And I really adore this film for that. So Pink Flamingos now is one of my all-time. I cherish this film so much. Again, despite the chicken scene, but anyway. Pink Flamingos. This is, yes, my number 4 favorite film-going experience. Number 3, Suspiria. Now, I saw this film many times, many times as a kid, and I saw it on VHS. I loved it. I just devoured it. I watched it so many times, and I think I was in college. And I heard that Suspiria was going to be playing in a movie theater in Boston, I think over the Christmas holidays or something like that. And so I read that in the newspaper somewhere, and I thought, my goodness, I have to go and see this. So I made sure to get tickets, and when I got tickets, I think when I say tickets, I mean just one ticket, because I just went by myself. And I went to Boston by myself, and I just found the theater, and I forget the name of the theater, but it was a great time because this was the first time I had seen Suspiria in the movie theater. And boy, what a wonderful time it was. I remember it was a late showing, and so the theater was pretty crowded, and people were screaming and laughing. And the print was, do you know the print at the beginning, the opening titles, they have the white lettering on the black, so Suspiria. We'll hear that when the title comes up, it wasn't the white lettering on the black, it was the pulsating letters, Suspiria, that you see in the trailer for the film. And I remember when that came up, people were kind of laughing and giggling. And it was the same thing. People were kind of just laughing, almost making fun of the film as the film started. And Susie Banier's out in the rain. It's this ridiculous amount of wind and rain that's assaulting her. So people were kind of giggling. And so that kind of was going on until, bam, the first scene involving Pat Hingle. In that apartment building, and with the glass and all that, and it was the music, and Goblin score was just pounding away on those speakers. And I remember people were screaming, and it was just and you could tell the people who were screaming were watching the film for the first time, and I was just looking at the screen, and I would have enjoyed just hearing their shock reaction, but I was too busy being shocked myself, because I was seeing this murder scene occur before my very eyes on this large screen for the first time, and it was utterly overwhelming. Utterly overwhelming, and that convinced me of the power of the first 15 minutes of this film. Again, I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. Has to be one of the great opening 15 minutes of a film ever. And watching it in that movie theater solidified that notion for me, big time. Suspiria. I'm so glad I was able to see this in the movie theater when I did. That was the only time I was able to do so. I know it's been getting a bit of a release lately, maybe on the in preparation for the new film, Suspiria, Luca Guadagnino film, which I haven't seen, by the way. It hasn't arrived on in Japan yet. I think it's supposed to arrive in January 2019. So now it's November 2018. So I haven't seen it. This is the one film I really want to see. I've been listening to the Tom York soundtrack on in my earphones every day for the past 3 or 4 weeks. I think every day I've been listening to that soundtrack because I'm anticipating that film. But that is all to say, of course, that I love Dario Argento's Suspiria, and I was so happy to have been able to have seen this film in the theater when I did, when I was young. Suspiria. Yes, my number 3. Number 2. Here we go. This is... Well, I put this here because this is supposed to be representing when I saw the film Vertigo in the theater. And this is when it was released for its, I guess, restoration, when it was restored and it was released. And this was when I was, I think, I want to say in a senior in high school, or maybe a freshman or sophomore in college, around that time. I forget exactly when it was, but I remember it was released in the theater, the restored Vertigo. And I had already seen the film quite a number of times on that VHS tape, with the blue cover and the little picture of Jimmy Stewart. But I'd never seen it restored, and I'd never seen it on the big screen. And so I went to see it. I think it was... oh gosh, again, I apologize for not remembering the names of the theaters, but it was a movie theater in New York, and it was a pretty big theater. And I remember sitting in the center, in the middle of the theater, and it was a pretty packed crowd. And the film began, and when it ended, I think I knew that this would be a film that I would cherish for the rest of my life. And what is that? That is about over 20 years ago now, and here I am, and I still cherish this film to this very day. I think I watch it about once a month. I think I've been watching it for about once a month for the past several years, actually. I never grow tired of this film. Oh gosh, I love this film so much, and the movie theater going experience of this was just so overwhelming. The colors were just beautiful and immaculate, and the music was lovely. The sound too. Well, I do have some issues with the sound. You know, sometimes if you know the restoration, you know that once in a while it'll suddenly turn stereo, which is a bit odd. You know, you have gunshots that suddenly echo behind you, or you have waves crashing, and then suddenly the waves envelop you in a way that I feel is a little bit unnatural. But those are minor points. I think as a film-going experience, the restoration in the theaters was just unbelievable, and it just solidified my feeling of the film. And I think it helped to formulate the notion in my mind that yes, now, even now, the film Vertigo is my favorite film. It is my favorite film. Vertigo is my favorite film, and I have the restoration and the privilege I had of watching it in the theater to thank for that. It's just one of the great movie-going experiences of my life. I went a number of times, actually. I bought tickets for a number of shows. I went a number of times, and each time it was just I discovered something new and something different. And I loved Jimmy Stewart, and I fell in love with Kim Novak, and the rest, as I say, was history. Vertigo. But the number one movie theater going experience for me, Seven Samurai. Now, this was shown on a really beautiful print. Now, I don't remember the details of it actually, but I think it was a 35mm print, I think. And this was a showing that occurred when I was an undergraduate at Yale. And I saw this film, which was shown as part of the kind of Kurosawa Film Festival that was being put up by the Yale Film Society. And I think the showing occurred when I was a freshman. And I remember the film was being shown in this kind of smallish, it wasn't even a movie theater, it was more like an auditorium, a small auditorium called the Whitney Humanities Center. I don't know if it's still there now. I haven't been to New Haven in a long time, but it was at the Whitney Humanities Center. And I remember the film, it was a crowded theater, and it was packed, I think, and everyone was, more or less, they were students, and there was a pretty rowdy crowd. And I looked around, and I looked around, and I didn't see a lot of, I saw a few of my film studies friends, but I think for the most part there were a lot of kind of non-film studies people there, if you know what I mean. And I was really surprised by that prior to the film starting. But then when it started and the action was starting to kick in, people were cheering and just laughing at the right moments, and they were just gasping and just clapping and applauding, and they were so into it. And I think it was one of those great moments. It was one of those moments where I felt so proud to be a student at this school. Because of the way that the student body in that Whitney Humanities Center auditorium were just paying so much respect to this great film, and they were cheering and laughing, and they were gasping, and I remember one moment in particular. I won't mention any details, but it's a particularly shocking moment, and when it occurs, people just you could hear the air leave the room. People were just gasping, like they're saying, "Oh my gosh, what has happened?" And there was a whisper, and then it's silent. The film is just silent, and the entire audience was silent too. And it was amazing. It was amazing, and I felt so alive at that moment, and I could feel the chills. It was like tingles, and I couldn't believe it. And I'd seen the film on VHS many times before when I was a high school student, but I didn't realize until that moment just how much power this film has. This film is packed with power. It has the ability to move in a way that I think is so undeniable. It is so palpable. And I am just count myself so lucky and privileged to have been able to have seen this film on the big screen in that audience, or in that theater with that audience, because it made me realize just how important a film like this is, and just how lucky I am to be able to watch the film now. And I feel so privileged and so honored and so happy. And I was so proud to be a student at that school at that particular point in time. It was the feeling of pride that I had by the end of that screening was so overwhelming. I couldn't talk to anyone afterwards. I walked out of the theater, I remember, and it was I think it was maybe not so late, but it was getting dark, and I just remember I just needed to walk by myself and just realize and reevaluate who I was, and really try to reevaluate how I was approaching the world. And I knew that I needed to change and to try to become a better person than I was at the time. So this was a real life-changing moment for me, and I'm so glad that I was able to watch this film in the theater in the way that I did. So Seven Samurai, without a doubt, my #1 favorite movie theater going experience of my life. Okay, my friends, so I hope you enjoyed that. It was a bit long, so I apologize, but if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to let me know at any time, and I'll be very happy to oblige to the best of my ability. Other than that, my friends, I hope you are happy and healthy and well. And please, 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 take good care of yourselves and spend time with your family and friends and your loved ones, and keep on watching a lot of great films. You know, I should say also that the Barnes & Noble sale is going on, and I always encourage people to buy new films and to get more Criterion films. But just as important as buying films, right, is watching them. So make sure that you, when you buy your Barnes & Noble films, you watch the films as well, because watching the films is so important in terms of one's film watching journey. And please, if you have any thoughts or insights along your own path, and if you wouldn't mind sharing them with me, I would so love to hear your own insights into the films that you are watching on your own film watching journey. Until we meet again, my friends, please be happy and healthy and well, and I look forward to seeing you again, when I can talk to you about more great films. Cheers.